The trial of the pharmacist accused of delivering toxic steroid injections back in 2012 is underway in federal court. Those tainted drugs killed dozens and sickened hundreds more all over the country. Well, tonight, one Lowell man who still suffers from the effects of the infection that he acquired will be going to represent victims in the courtroom and to see the defendant face to face. 24-Hour News 8's Barton spoke with that man today and has his story tonight. Barton.
Well, Brian, it's been more than 4 years since the shipment of nearly 18,000 contaminated vials of preservative-free steroids made their way from the New England Compounding Center in Massachusetts to pharmacists and physicians across the country. That included a pain treatment center where Lowell resident Bill Thomas was being treated for back pain he suffered following a motorcycle crash back in 1973. Barry Cadden faces federal charges that include racketeering and 25 counts of second-degree murder. The trial, which began January 9th, is expected to last at least 2 months. The U.S. attorney says the steroids were mixed in unsanitary conditions with expired ingredients. The outbreak of fungal infections linked to the injections killed at least 64 people and made at least 700 people sick, according to the government. After nearly 2 decades of combating the back pain from his injuries, Bill Thomas got an injection in September of 2012.
Didn't feel right. Even by the time I left the clinic, I felt sick, I felt off, I felt weak. I felt like there'd been some sort of a shock to my system.
His primary care doctor could not figure out what was wrong. Thomas's blood tests were normal, but he was plagued with ever-worsening flu-like symptoms, light sensitivity, insomnia, and pain.
It was incredible. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before.
When did they figure it out? How did they figure out what you had?
They didn't. I figured it out.
He heard a TV news story linking meningitis-tainted steroids that were given in Howell. He did more internet searches and then took himself to the hospital. There, he told hospital officials he had meningitis, and the hospital confirmed his self-diagnosis. He was the third of what would become a flood of patients. Doctors treated Thomas with very toxic antibiotics that can cause seizures and even brain and kidney damage. He was in the hospital a week, but still had to get toxic antibiotics after his release. He said they damaged his brain. He continued to feel sick for years.
So 2 years after the initial injection is when I started to feel better and recover.
He continued to have fevers at night until just a few months ago.
My memory's shot. I can't concentrate. I get confused easily. I misunderstand things easily.
The injection cost him his job and his quality of life.
I just want to emphasize how worse off most other people are.
In his condition, it will be a hardship to travel to Boston. So why go?
To look this guy in the face and to just sort of represent these are real people whose lives you destroyed. I hope he's convicted and spends the rest of his life in prison.
Now, Bill Thomas won't be testifying, but he still has a lot to say. He says this incident is an indictment of the American medical establishment, where there are huge profits to be made by cutting corners and inadequate enforcement to keep it from happening. Live in the control room, Barton 24-Hour News 8.
And it's remarkable in all of this, Barton, he trusted his gut. You got to love a guy who goes with a self-diagnosis.
Right, and lots of times that doesn't work. Going to the internet usually isn't a great idea, but this time it sure worked.
Yes, it did. Barton.